Will this be the year of Team Red as AMD confirmed at Computex new Ryzen 3000 series chips and Navi GPUs? AMD stock shoots up, private organizations begin building the wall, and a feminist gets her facts wrong in a hilarious book tour. I'm Matthew White, and this is the AR Podcast. To get started, let's look at the Ryzen 3000 launch. For starters, we can check out the 15% IPC gain in the chip itself before we delve into any specifics on the Ryzen 3000 lineup. The 15% IPC gain is important, especially in CPUs that, spoiler alert, will only be able to clock up at about 4.6 gigahertz on all cores. That's on the 12-core model, which will be the most expensive chip and their most enthusiast grade. A 15% IPC gain on all cores for single-threaded performance on their individual CPUs will be very, very interesting to see in the new market. This is a fantastic time for AMD as they released this information at Computex, and a lower power draw. I believe their 6-core processors are now 65 watts and 95 watts, and their 8-core processors are also both 95 watts, and their 12-core processor is a 105 watt chip, so just the same wattage, just the same TDP as their last gen 8-core chip. And the 7 nanometer node looks like it is going to be very successful in the computer enthusiast market and in the budget market, especially those people wanting to save on power supplies. You can do so with Ryzen 3000. They did some Cinebench testing at Computex, and I'm not going to get into that, but it looks like they are better than i9 X series chips in Cinebench. They tested some chip, I can't remember, maybe it was the 7920X or I think it was the 79, or maybe it was the 7900X. It was Intel's 12-core 24-thread workstation i9 on their enthusiast grade motherboard series, and it looked like their AMD's 12-core 24-thread mainstream processor. Remember, mainstream meaning it will not have an enthusiast price tag on it while still having the grade of enthusiast. So it looked like Ryzen 3000 was beating or getting very close to Intel's high-end chips. Even the 7980XE clocked at 4.5. Maybe it was stock, but I'm going to assume that they were at the same clock speeds. AMD still got very close to the Cinebench score of Intel's highest grade 18-core 36-thread CPU. Now, as for the lineup, now these chips are on the 7 nanometer node, which means each transistor is 7 nanometers apart inside the chiplets on the actual die of the CPU itself. Now, these processors, Ryzen 5, there will be a Ryzen 5 3600, which will be a 6-core 12-thread, base clock 3.5, I believe, base clock, 3.5 gigahertz base, and 4.2 gigahertz boost. Now, the Ryzen 5 3600X will be a 6-core 12-thread base clock, 3.8 gigahertz. Boost clock will be 4.4 gigahertz. Now, there's going to be a Ryzen 7 3700X and a Ryzen 7 3800X. Now, the 3700X will be a I can't remember the base clock off the top of my head, but I do know that the boost clock will be 4.4 gigahertz, and on the 3800X the boost clock will be 4.5. So 4.4 on the 3700X and 4.5 on the 3800X. And AMD did confirm that they are going to release a 3900X, so a Ryzen 9 3900X, and that will be clocked at 4 gigahertz base, I think, maybe 3.9, and then boost will be 4.6. So we will be seeing these chips released on July 7th. So for those of you keeping track at home, they will be released on 7/7, and so that's sort of something cool that AMD is throwing out there. And that will be that. We're very excited to see what's going to happen in the market, and very excited to see some reviews going on in the tech community on YouTube and beyond. Now, AMD also released their Navi GPUs. Navi GPU rather. And so far there's only one, and they have confirmed that RTX is not out of the question. So ray tracing support is not out of the question for Navi. Now, they are 10% faster than the 2070s. They confirmed this at Computex. But as far as what they're trying to do here, it looks like they're trying to overtake the middle of the road mid-range market of the GPU. Well, maybe I use mid-range lightly, because it is, the 2070 is still a $500 card. But for the price, if they come out at $300 for this card, it may even overtake, for price per performance, their Radeon 7, which is my next topic. What would happen to the Radeon 7 with Navi priced where I think it will price, where the tech community thinks it's going to end up as far as a price tag goes? Will it just rule out the Radeon 7? I mean, at this price point, it should be able to. As far as what the tech community thinks, again, with a grain of salt, it may just be under our expectations and be a little bit more pricier. That's what I'm expecting. That's what happened with the Ryzen 3000 launch, a little bit lower than everybody's expectations. Everybody thought this was going to absolutely blow Intel out of the water. It turns out that these chips are only clocking up to 500 megahertz rather, lower than we thought they were going to clock. We thought they were going to be 5 gigahertz chips, and they're not. And so we need to take everything we have here with a fine grain of salt. Now, AMD stock, it increased 10% because of Ryzen 3000 Navi. Again, their conference at Computex in Taipei was very successful, very, very great for investors. Very good time to get into the computer market. Now, their stock has increased, and this is because investors believe AMD is about to retake the CPU market, about to retake the GPU market, again putting a big step forward into the mid-range GPU game. So, and this might be the first time in 15 years AMD has taken over. AMD is innovating on a new level, and investors like that. Again, very exciting time to be in the computer market. Now, onto political news. A privately funded organization called We Build the Wall, according to Fox News, has started to build a wall outside of El Paso, again on private land. So this land, nobody can come in and say, hey, you can't do that, except for the landowner. And so far, no problems have been raised. There are a few questions that we as American people should have because of this development. First, is this the next step to national security? Is the free market the only way that we are going to get national security? Now, congressional incompetence, both Republican and Democrat, have yielded no resolve have yielded no results out of the congressional building in D.C., out of the legislative branch as a whole. And so now the free market takes over. And is this the next step in national security? Is the free market the next step in national security? More on that as it develops. But again, the wall is being built outside of El Paso, and so far there have been no complaints. If you want to go look at that article, I encourage you to go look. And they are running entirely off of private donations, private funds. No money has been given from the government. They are completely private, and obviously in support of the administration and its efforts to build a wall. Now, this story, and this is the absolute funniest story. I did not believe this at first, and then I listened to it again, and it is absolutely hilarious. A feminist, again, we're going to have to look at the name real quick. She got her facts wrong. She got her facts wrong in a book, and it was absolutely hilarious. A host called her out on it, and let me type this up real quick. Well, okay, it doesn't look like it's coming up, but very, very big story. It was on the news. So if you want to check that out, I would delve deeper into that. But here's the thing: she wrote a book, and again, she's a feminist, very liberal. Wrote a book about the Victorian era in England and how apparently they were more anti-gay than they were originally believed to be. She based her entire book on the fact that people were executed because they were gay. Now, the one of her examples was based on a case of a gay teenager. Now, she gets one fact wrong, and that is death recorded. Now, death recorded is a term that was used in Victorian England by the legal system, and what it meant was that judges could basically record your death, so they didn't have to put you to death, and that they considered your case pardonable, which means they could in fact pardon you if they so chose. Death recorded just meant that they could record your death, but so that way they would not have to put you to death, that they could also consider pardoning you. Now, this is something that she got wrong. She thought that this meant that they were executing people, and she found like 15 cases of hegemony, or whatever, being homosexual. She found 15 cases of this in Victorian England, in which death recorded was written in the legal documents, and she thought that meant they were getting executed. They were being put to death because of their homosexuality. Now, that's not what it meant. Somebody called her out on it, and it was the funniest thing. The entire book was based on a false premise, but that's not the worst part. The worst part is one of her cases was based on a 14-year-old boy who also had the death recorded term used in his case, who was convicted of raping a 9-year-old, and So the boy she referenced was gay, but he was also a pedophile. He was convicted of raping a 9-year-old, and she just left this all out. She didn't know. I can't. I guess I do blame her for putting this in her book, but you know, after that, I can't blame her. She's writing about falsehoods, things that didn't happen. It's possible that all of the death recorded cases that she referred to, none of those people died. None of them were executed. And this is what happens when you don't look into your facts. You simply infer everything, which you can infer that death recorded means that your death has been recorded because you just were put to death. It is definitely possible to misinterpret that term, which is why you have to look it up. You have to keep looking into it. But again, I will say this, and that is, the feminist movement is based on lies. It is based on falsehoods in biology. It is based on women somehow not needing men, and vice versa, men not needing women. The independence of women is not their goal anymore. Their goal is to silence masculinity. Their goal is to make women less happy, and make men not want to marry. They want to rule out the masculinity in this nation, because if their goal was to make women more happy, and this was a study earlier, they would that women who were married and who were religious, and specifically Christian, and who were basically homemakers, who spent time with their kids, who didn't have to worry about putting food on the table, made sure the table was clean, but didn't have to make sure they had to put food on the table, if you guys will understand the analogy. It was found out that these women were happier, that these women were happier than normal women who did go to work, just like the man, who weren't religious and who didn't get to spend very much time with the kids. It was found out that women who were dependent on a husband, and who got to spend a lot of time with her kids, and who embraced God, were happier. And more on that will follow, but that is just the facts that feminism ignores. But anyway, guys, let me know what you guys thought of today's podcast. That is all the time I have today. Shoot me a comment, or like if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it, and again, subscribe, because more of these will come probably every 2 days, to get the news roundup going. And again, thank you for viewing. You're supporting the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Again, this was Matthew White, Editor-in-Chief of the Everyday Republic, and for all of you news junkies, tech junkies, political junkies, whatever kind of junkie, pick your poison. I will see you and talk to you in the next one.